is a profession that was once highly respected, but is now a complete joke? Story 1. Journalism. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being about delivering the news in a timely manner and started being about getting clicks and being the first to report something, even if it might not have been true. Story 2. Retail. Believe it or not, it was once considered a respectable job. Adults would work full-time for years with the same company, be knowledgeable about what they sold, and make a wage that could support a family. Story 3. Mail carrier. In the US at least. We had a good half-century where delivering the mail was highly paid, highly respected, and a great job for people that didn't like the typical office job site routine. In 2024, the pay is subpar and moving towards outright poverty wages. The respect is still high, but waning due to out-of-control junk mail and subpar carriers who don't get paid enough to care. The PO took all the new technology of the last 2 decades that could have made the job easier and more efficient and used it to micromanage carriers. Source: Am Mail Guy. Story 4. CEO. Business magnate. Believe it or not, the majority of us in the 90s thought the US was a meritocracy, and those people got there by being smart. Turns out it's just nepotism and connections with a smattering of generational wealth. Story 5. Truck driving. Truckers used to be called the knights of the road. Now they're a bunch of clowns. I'm a retired driver. It was a good profession when I started. Story 6. I remember when I was a kid, you were seen as an ungrateful if you didn't respect the police no matter what, and at all times. Now it seems that everyone has a certain disdain and distrust of the police no matter your background. Story 7. Technical maintenance. Industrial maintenance. Used to be respected for your knowledge and contribution to production numbers. Now, with corporate greed, you are the red-headed stepchild and costing them money. You don't need all those parts. But woe to you if a machine goes down and you have no part because they reduced your inventory by 34. Edit word correction. Story 8. Wedding photographers. We went from being the preservers of authentic, awesome, joyful moments for the bride and groom to being content creators that manufacture those authentic moments for likes and bridefluencers. I assisted at a wedding this past fall where the bride and groom redid their first kiss 3 different times for the content creators. Seriously. Ugh, edit honestly, the whole wedding industry needs a good kick in the nards. Story 9. Nursing. We went from heroes during COVID to expendable workers, working at a 30% loss of staff so they can offer 5 yearly raises. It's a total joke. There's no one with experience anymore. About 70% of nurses have been on the job less than 5 years and don't stay anywhere more than 2 years. Not to mention starting rates for new nurses in some areas is as low as $28 an hour for a degree and license. Pathetic. Story 10. The keeper of the royal stool used to be a very well-respected position. Edit for those not in the know, yes, this is what you imagine it to be. There used to be someone whose job it was to wipe the royal arses, and it was a highly sought-after and well-respected position. Edit 2. Groom of the stool, not keeper. Thanks up, Mosier. Story 11. Not sure if this was just a ME thing, but I used to think HR had a purpose. I wasn't sure what it was, but now I get that they are not there for you, but as nothing more as a liability shield for the company, and that they should not be trusted by employees under any circumstances. HR is like the police. They can and will lie directly to your face. They do not have your interest in mind, and the entire dept is staffed by people who have no skills in anything tangible. Story 12. Catholic priest. There was a time where it was an honorable profession, and they were admired for their devotion to the Lord. Then the whispers of wrongdoing became shouts, and they can no longer hide the fact that the Catholic Church was harboring monsters. Plural. For decades, it's infuriating to think the people in charge, instead of turning the priest in for assaulting minors, simply would move them to another parish. Imagine you find out your son was molested by a priest that they knew molested other boys and moved him into your parish and didn't tell anybody about it. I'd go full Hulk rage. I still find myself in church for Easter, Christmas, and the like, and on the back of the program there's common prayers. They now wrap up the Mass with a prayer for young men, still only men, to hear the calling and join the priesthood. Their numbers are dwindling. More often than not, they need to import priests from India or faraway lands because no kid wants to grow up to be a priest. Who can blame them? Watch Spotlight if for no other reason than Michael Keaton, the American treasure. Story 13. I feel like nurses have taken a hit in the last few years. Growing up, I always saw nurses as respectable profession, but now I see a lot of people make fun of nurses because they see a lot of them on social media, spouting completely anti-science BS, or they have become memes for being a mean girl profession. I mean, I do know a nurse who has told me a donut is a complex carb that is a good breakfast for a diabetic child. Story 14. In the 90s, software engineers were the. Now we are the same as an admin and project managers are gods. Couldn't code their way out of a wet bag, But them Gantt charts. Story 15 lawyers. There are so many in the legal profession doing meaningful greater good work, but the public image is corporate fat cats, ambulance chasers, and being the fall guy for why every house move is delayed. Story 16. Was getting a vaccine recently, and the nurse giving it to me said, I would never put anything like this in my body. I was really shocked. Even if you think that, should you really be saying that to patients? Story 17. I think the real question is, what are professions that people respect? I think people don't have much respect for anything unless it serves their selfish desires. Story 18. The counseling profession is currently in limbo. Consumers do not realize the atrocity and horror of companies such as BetterHelp and Ellie Health and Grow Therapy, etc. These are not grounded in mental health at all, and soon AI will be an option. The best therapists are those that can form a connection with a client, using techniques that take years and extra training, much to therapists' dismay as it is. There is no quick fix, and a robot cannot help you. Story 19. Philosopher. It used to be that logic and reasoning worked in harmony with scientific discovery to apply the knowledge gained in meaningful ways that benefit everyone. Now philosophers are unbearable rags who smear pretty words at the wall to appear smart and provide no benefit to humanity whatsoever. Story 20. The profession of a town crier was once highly respected but has largely become obsolete. Many of you will read this and ask if this is real or if it is a joke. It is indeed a real thing. Story 21. One that literally had this happen overnight is male models. They were celebrity enough to make bank and be a celebrity, but not in the personal public eye enough to have people have major opinions about them. Then Zoolander was released. The entire profession was rocked to its core because of that movie. It became such a joke that advertisers and agencies were having their own version of the YouTube adpocalypse, because Zoolander did such a successful job breaking the golden celebrity facade of the entire profession. Story 22. Investment banker. At one time it used to be a highly respected job, but now it is just filled with young people who think they're going to be the next Warren Buffett. Story 23. I feel like business degrees used to be worth a lot more than they are now. People used to have to trade stocks and manually manage all their accounts, but now one person with a suite of programs can do the same job. In my area, business degrees are worth about the same as arts degrees. Neither is particularly valuable or speaks to a candidate's skills unless it is a position in that field. But business was the most popular degree at my university, so it's a very diluted pool of candidates. Story 24. Professional wiper. There was a crazy lady in my town that had a chiropractology practice. She was a chiropractor but claimed to be able to cure anything from infertility to constipation. My dad went to her after a car accident to cure his neck pain. It did nothing, but mentioned to her he was having constipation issues. She ended up using this device she called an activator and massaged his lower back with some cream. Well, it worked because he was shitting like a broken sprinkler that night. Then his pee turned brown the next morning, and he had to go to the ER for kidney damage because he had somehow taken too much of a topical diuretic. I wonder how that happened. Anyway, her clinic has been gone for a decade, but I still don't trust chiropractors. Story 25. Grocery clerk. It actually was skilled labor, requiring the employee to manage the inventory to keep the store from running out and to keep everything in date. That requires true skill. With the invention of barcodes and the rise of personal computers in the 1990s, companies started tracking sales and developed algorithms to forecast future needs. Now, you just need a whole bunch of people to stock and only one or two people to make sure the numbers that the computer has are accurate. Story 26. Travel agent. You used to have to be cosmopolitan, erudite, and it would open you up connections to a larger network of folks around the world. If you were one of few travel agencies in your town, you were often connected to government officials as well as the local barons of industry. Now it's mostly just surfing the internet. Story 27. Singer. It was a whole performance requiring a lot of talent, skill, and practice. They had to perform live, risking the wrath of the audience. Now every mumble rapper or out-of-tone show some chick can call themselves singer. Story 28. One profession that was once highly respected but is now often the subject of jokes is the travel agent. Before the internet and online booking platforms, travel agents were essential for planning trips, booking flights, and securing accommodations. They were seen as knowledgeable experts who could navigate complex travel logistics and provide personalized service. However, with the rise of self-service travel websites like Expedia, Booking.com, and Airbnb, the profession has significantly declined in visibility and status. Today, many people perceive travel agents as outdated, and the idea of using one is sometimes joked about as unnecessary or old-fashioned. That said, Travel agents still play a vital role for certain niche markets, like luxury travel or complex itineraries, but their widespread reputation has shifted. Story 29 Journalism. Clickbait headlines like porridge and crumpets to be labeled as junk food. The real story is that it is only foods of that kind with added sugar will be labeled as such. The result is manufactured outrage of people thinking the government wants to stop them eating normal healthy porridge and crumpets. Stuff like this used to be the preserve of the Express and Daily Mail. Now the and other outlets are doing it too. Story 30. Hotel I worked at in NYC still has a freight elevator operator. The elevator has long been converted to normal push buttons, but the union requires an operator, so the guy sits there on a stool and pushes the button for you. And if he goes on break, you are not allowed to operate the elevator. Story 31. I'd say doctors and surgeons, but they've always been viewed with some degree of suspicion simply because their livelihood involves profiting from our natural fear of disability and death. It's just that now, you can easily see how they talk about patients behind their backs on sites like Reddit, and it's hard to not lose respect. Same for scientists, they've also always been viewed with suspicion simply because the average person doesn't really understand what they're up to with all those lights and chemicals. But now, it's no secret how often scientific knowledge is twisted by governments and megacorporations. Of course, Reddit blames the citizens for rising anti-intellectualism, but a lot of it is on the intellectuals for being elitist. Story 32. Local auto mechanic. It used to be that there were a couple reliable guys in town that you could trust to do the job correctly at a reasonable price. Now, people are using the franchise locations or dealers, and with trepidation that they're going to be finding extra things to fix or perform unnecessary work. I'm fortunate to have a local guy I can trust, but that's becoming a rarity. Story 33 Journalism. Journalists are supposed to be truth seekers. They are supposed to dig and tell the public what they find. Nowadays, they are little more than a loud hand for the people who own them. Journalists who get into it for the sake of truth and justice end up dying or committing suicide. Story 34 Doctors. In a way, they spend an insane amount of time in school, only to come out and make a mediocre salary while being slaves to the pharma industry and health insurance industry, as well as slaves to profit-driven hospitals who make you work brutal hours. If it wasn't for the need and satisfaction of helping people, no one would do the job. Concierge-type medicine is where many doctors are moving to in order to get away from this. Story 35 Lawyers. They lie for a living, when in the end it's a lottery. It doesn't matter what they say, the judge makes the decision, and it can be as random as. Story 36. After reading the comments, what professions are actually left that are considered respectable? All that's being suggested tells me that everyone just disrespects everything and everyone. Feels kinda gross. Story 37 Teachers. Want to be a professional? Stop getting a pension and taking summer off. Want good teachers? Pay them $90K per year and give them a 401K. Frustrating to see such an important position minimized. Story 38 Realtor. Not sure what the point in hiring and paying them is anymore. Investment advisors. Mutual funds and ETFs are the way to go. No one can accurately pick individual stocks on the short term. Insurance sales. Maybe if it's cheap advice for auto, but that's about it. Story 39. Sadly, medics. At least here in my area, they're not respected at all. Of course not by anyone, but the attacks or verbal abuses becoming more and more. I still don't understand how you can even think of insulting or even attacking a person who only wants to help and save lives. Story 40. President of the United States of America. People across the world used to highly respect our commander-in-chief regardless of political leanings, and now to everyone it is a complete joke. Story 41 School bus driver. Because when you're a kid, the universe is arranged like Tier 1. The authorities. Mom, Dad, God, grandparents, other adult relatives. Tier 2. The adults who I must respect because they have direct authority over me. Teachers, school bus drivers, policemen, doctors, clergymen. Tier 3 Everyone else. Then you grow up and find out over time that Tier 2, 3 include a lot of highly skilled professionals and bus drivers. Exaggeration incoming are basically on work release or one step out of rehab. Story 42 President of the United States. Not even kidding here or being contrarian. It used to be an honored, respected, decorumed position. It's a joke now. Story 43. Journalism was once a respected position, with journalists traveling to war zones and protests. Now, they tweet all day and write clickbait articles. Yes, there are still good journalists out there, but I don't think they are the norm. Story 44. Pharmacists. The most easily accessible medical professional who has completed years of schooling and understands medication management therapeutic optimization and can recommend options for most diseases. who is now reduced to slave wages in understaffed work environments with customers yelling at them that their meds aren't ready. Story 45. On the whole, any political position. While there was certainly politicians with bad reputations in the past, and there are still some well-respected politicians today, most politicians are viewed negatively in the modern social media-led world.